for both of these squads.
So Thresh, Jace, and Cho were the bans last time. Looks like they're going to be the same right now for the side of G2. Zac, Caitlyn, Elise is what you'd expect. However, in game 1, H2K decided to ban away the Sejuani rather than the Caitlyn. Now in game 2, H2K shifted that up. They banned the Kate and the Sejuani as well. They don't have that option anymore. G2, they're shifting things up themselves a little bit as well.
Yeah, no one's getting the Cho'Gath. That's one thing. But G2, I'm pretty sure they're just going to pick Caitlyn here. It is still up and available. Sven had a nice time playing it in the previous game.
But it's also going to allow Jankos to get himself the Sejuani too. So I think, like, given that we saw H2K play fairly well around the Caitlyn in game 1, I think they'll be fine with this. So they'll go for something like a Varus Sejuani lock-in now for the side, if that Caitlyn is in fact first pick.
Spoke to Sven in between the games briefly as we passed each other. I was like, I was surprised you got Caitlyn. He's like, I was surprised too. So clearly still a very powerful champion. First pick worthy once again for the side of G2. But as you mentioned, some big picks left up and available for the H2K lineup.
A lot of laughs coming out from the faces of G2 right now. Definitely in good spirits, but seriousness for H2K. It means a lot for them to be able to take down G2.
But I don't want to see them get too serious. G2, our H2K are a team that historically doesn't do great under big amounts of pressure. I want to see them have fun. I want to see them go for the same confident early game. Make large aggressive plays. Fun is probably the terrible word, but I want to see them make big confident plays, right? I don't want them to be like, everything is on the line right here, stressed out. Because clearly G2 aren't. G2 are still feeling positive, they're still feeling good, and I feel like that is a winning mentality coming into a best of series.
Yep. So it looks like that the focus will be on making sure that they have the safety. They do not want to give Caitlyn Braum once again. Now, I wonder whether or not G2 will shift things up. Maybe they go for a range support, pair that up with the Caitlyn. Or will they stick with the melee? Like, Tahm Kench still very viable, a lot of great peel. Still room for the Taric. I'm a big advocate. Instead, they're not going to go for it.
No,
That's
nothing new, nothing crazy in the support pool. Braum, Tahm Kench going to be the matchup. Last time G2 eSports prioritized the Braum. This time they're getting their hands on the Tahm Kench. We'll see what H2K want to round out the first pick phase with. They already have the double ice combo. 4-stack stuns on both the Sejuani and the Braum.
So what you're telling me is you expect Ash Lissandra next. That's what you're saying.
I wish. I love Lissandra. She's terrible, but I love her.
Ooh, okay, so they're going for the hyper-carried Cog. Something that is being picked more and more over in the LCK and LPL. I think that he's actually surprisingly good in lane. A lot of people don't realize how effective he can be in terms of just his ability to trade. But also, you don't have to build compositions that are just like protect the Kog'Maw, especially when you have a Braum. You can still have like a carry mid lane, you can still have a split pushing top. You still have all these options if you want, and you can just rely on him to be that low mobility, high damage dealing AD carry, depending on how you want to play your stuff.
Braum offering so much of that protection, mitigating so much of what other enemy AD carries or casters can do. We now head to the second ban phase. LeBlanc taken off the board once again. Gnar going to be banned away. Do not want to
feel like a Jarvan's coming for G2 once
If I had to guess why G2 were laughing on stage, it's because they're talking about their draft and they've realized that Expect is going to play Jarvan. Not regardless of what happens.
He plays it well, to be fair. No reason to fix something that ain't broke.
Talia banned away from PerkZ though. Do not want to give him a safer blind pick mid.
And I wonder if G2 now ban away the Orianna. Otherwise, you would expect H2K to go for something like that very early on. Febi very confident on that champion, and it would fit very nicely with the Kog'Maw too.
Have to see. What are they going to save the last pick for? Top lane still up and available. Orianna has been banned away as predicted. What is going to be the go-to pick here? Mid lane pool shrinked so much. 4 bans this time, focused at the mid lane champions.
You could just go for the Renekton here, if you're H2K, if you want just some strong top laner, good in team fights. Or, how can you forget the H2K classic?
So here's the thing, Vedius. You told me that Kog'Maw might not need protection. Yeah. H2K have a different approach. H2K are going to give that Kog'Maw protection. That is 3 tanks in a Kog'Maw, Vedius.
In before it's Galio mid.
I don't know if that's the right choice.
Yeah, I don't think it's the right choice either, but we shall see. Remember, there's always the possibility that you flex to the mid lane. We did see it picked into the Corki too, but I am expecting it to be in that AD carry position. And given that all of the A/S tier mid laners have been banned away, we now move on to some of the more comfort champions, something that you can just be lane dominant with, and can also move off into a side lane.
Cassio coming in for PerkZ. Not a whole lot of matchups left that it is pour into. Historical counters not quite as good as they once were. So feels like a decent opportunity to pick it with so many picks off the board. Now G2 eSports Expect gets to play something that's not Jarvan. That's exciting for him.
And it's a winning lane too. Finally, Expect. He's going to feel a little bit more confident. So now they have winning matchup bot lane. They have winning matchup top lane. G2, they're looking promising, depending on how this final pick goes. I think it's risky to go for something like a Corki, largely because Cassio does act as an answer. But Viktor is something that's always been considered fairly well into the Cassio because of how well he can trade in the early game. So I think very well-rounded composition from H2K. But again, very much team fight. Very much what we're expecting. 1-4 start of play. You can send your top laners off onto a side lane, have the other side lane slow pushing, and then you just group up and fight. Gragas engages, Sejuani engages, damage from the mid laners in Cassio and Viktor, scaling for both your AD carries. Two very, very, very similar compositions. The slight difference is that H2K have a little bit more protection for their AD carry compared to that of G2.
And a little bit more side lane threat in the hands of G2 with that Renekton. Small differences, but crucial differences, and we'll see how it works out. The early game was the deciding factor in Game 2. The consistent aggression of the Cho'Gath, the wildly aggressive early ganks, and tower dives from H2K working out so well for them, and G2 unable to mitigate it. This time around, a little bit safer in some of the picks to Tahm Kench to save the day. Going to be nice for Zven to have in that laning phase. Where is the focus going to be? We're going to have to find out. But head on over to Twitter. I told you last time that you know how to vote. I still believe in you. But I'm going to tell you anyway. Hashtag H2K win or hashtag G2 win at LOL Esports is the place. One final game. Decide who will come out on top.
We've had a great series so far. Both teams putting up stellar performances. G2 in Game 1 with those great late game team fights. And then H2K in Game 2 with a early dominant performance. Let's see which style comes out on top.
The audience is ready. I hope everyone at home is ready as well because we are geared up for Game 3. A lot of predictions for 2-0 either way. All of them wrong. G2 on the blue side, H2K on the red. We've seen two very different games. One explosive, one slow, drawn out, intelligent macro decisions. Present in both games, but will it be explosive in the early game, or is it going to be much slower this time around?
It's going to be slow, unfortunately. I feel like we're going back to what we saw in Game 1. I know you're frustrated, Drakos. It's fine. It's okay.
Look, dude, I saw a Cho'Gath kill like 6 people.
You got happy. You got what you wanted, and that's what matters, right? We got to give now back to the league enthusiasts that care about macro, that care about vision, and also gives us more time to talk about mid lane, my favorite.
It is.
Who doesn't want to hear about a Viktor and Cassio match?
Wait, Vedius, if you tell me anything other than they farm, I'm going to be really happy right now.
No, actually, it's really intricate because there's actually a lot of really fun trading patterns in the mid lane. Something that I personally like to do and have seen a few other Victors do is you take 2 points into your Q fairly early. So you go Q, E, Q, and that means that even though the Cassio will take 2 points in her E as well, the little twin fang things, your shield will actually mitigate a lot of the harass and poison damage that she has. On top of the fact that a Viktor naturally has more wave clear, means that he will be able to get a decent push and trade relatively well into a Cassio. And that's why Viktor is commonly considered a decent pick. Adds the fact that he has a Deathfire touch as well. That's the one.
Not grasp.
Yeah,
don't
not
go
grasp.
that far back. We call that dusk blade now.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's actually a pretty good matchup. But at level 1, level 2, still heavily in favor of PerkZ.
Interesting to see, of course, still level 1s across the board, keeping our eyes on the jungle clear, looking where teams want to put that first attention. We've seen tanks in the jungle farm up. We've seen tanks in the jungle snowball lanes and get out of control very quickly. Have to wonder what this game is going to be. H2K getting their pick of the tank junglers with the Sejuani has been a powerhouse. Where Trick has been onto the Gragas, still an incredibly stable meta pick, but not quite as popular this time around. And the matchup, I swear, is good for Renekton, but probably not here at this level 1.
It's only, yeah, it is only just early levels. Odo taking advantage of his Q to get the bonus attack speed. The thing about Renekton level 1, all he can do is Q and auto you, whereas Odo can auto you more. Because he naturally...
He's an attack speed steroid and scaling max health damage and a shield and...
Yeah, but yeah, my analysis is better. Like, he hits you more, so he does more damage.
Got it, thank you. Trick, though, now making his way onto the top side. Historically, we've seen so many Renekton picks supported by their junglers. Usually it's the Elise that you identify as that terrifying dive duo. But Odoamne moving forward. May just set Trick up for success. The flash forward, the body slam moving in. That's going to be first blood. Over to expect, and a great start for G2.
Really good punish from G2, recognizing that Odo, he wants to try and trade during the early laning phase, take advantage of the early spike in damage that Shen does have over the Renekton. He then gets the flank off, he has the body slam, no early ward from Odo will result in first blood going over to that Renekton.
Doubling down on some of those aggressive trades, maybe not the right choice. Jankos going to fire back, going to get a scuttle crab. You see a little bit of pressure going over into mid lane. But when we look at Jankos, a lot of pressure on his shoulders in this game 3, because in game 2, he was just about everything for this team.
So just to highlight one of the key stats there is jungle proximity. This is the amount of time between 3 and 15 minutes that Jankos will have spent with his laners, right? And a bit of trading in the middle lane, a lot of trading.
Full aggression. Mithy now moving forward. Febiven, exhaust goes down, cleanse comes out. Tongue lash going to miss. Nice sidestep from Febiven, but surprise aggressive gank in the mid lane. Gonna give up the cleanse for Febiven.
Yeah, that's not a bad trade at all from G2. Good roam there from Mithy, taking advantage of the fact that he had a pushing lane bot. But just to very quickly backtrack, this is a super interesting stat from Jankos. The average overall jungle proximity for junglers in Europe is 40.8%. We don't have time again because there's another fight on bottom lane.
You're not gonna talk about stats today.
Okay, just a trade, just a trade. Okay, good. Jankos' average jungle proximity is 43.8, so he's slightly above. He was 58.5%. He spent well over half of his early game just sitting in lane and trying to gank. And that is the style that he has had so much success with when he plays with H2K, and it's really great to see. It's why H2K were able to snowball so effectively, but now he has found Trick.
Trick getting aggressive. Jankos just has to flash out over the wall. Nice confidence coming in from Trick. Level 5 to level 3. We're gonna have to backtrack, figure out exactly how that happened, but that is an insane lead coming in for Trick.
It's actually insane.
Oh, Jankos.
2-level advantage.
Nothing gonna happen. I thought Trick was gonna follow up and kill him, but Jankos luckily.
So Gragas, mate.
Still
slow down.
It's a level 5 Gragas.
It is. That's
Jankos now level 4 though, so not quite as big as it once was moments ago. Of course, the catch-up mechanic in the jungle means that you're not going to hold on to that level.
Yeah, and look at the movement as well from Mithy, always following in with his jungler, get that deep vision. But now Odo, he's in some serious trouble. Flash up for expect.
Level 4 to level 5, flash forward, 1 auto attack. Spirit Trap, you're going to buy a little bit of time looking for the Cole. The Meek is going to get it. 1 auto, the Q comes out. That's another kill.
See, this is what happens. You give expect a winning matchup, and he's like, I'm going to take advantage of this, hopefully.
He's like, guys,
winning matchups
look
every
at this.
game.
Never put me on Jarvan again. Don't do it. I can win lane every time. Just give me a chance.
He's doing a great job. Early investment from Trick. Expect runs away with it. Renekton into Shen. Going to make things so much better for G2 in the early game, because a very classic Shen move is once he hits level 6, he wants to try and make a play happen down bot. But Jankos level 4, Odo level 5, Nuclear and Chei constantly being forced underneath their tower. G2 really putting the pressure on with these winning lanes that they have in top and bot.
Nuclear and Chei still trading quite confidently, but we can see how much of an issue top lane is going to be as we move further into the game. Level 6 to level 5. Renekton with the fervor of battle as well, just going to dish out so much damage and phage, making it even easier for him to stick to his target. But Vedius, we've seen 3 different games. Game 1, slow, nobody's game in the early game. Game 2, all about H2K. Game 3 feels like it's all about G2 in the early game. The question is, can H2K do a better job of mitigating these early advantages than G2 did in Game 2?
Well, I wonder. I feel like right now, yes. I definitely feel like that they can. Now that Febiven has hit level 6, and he hasn't quite upgraded Hex Core yet, but once he does, so much wave clear available in the mid lane. Just stall, stall, stall. Kog'Maw's still going to scale up very nicely. Very likely expecting the Rage Blade kind of build, which we can talk more about later once he decides to complete it. And then you still have the ability to just play around these 2 carries, Febiven and Nuclear. With the composition that they have, there's a huge amount of CC, and I'm expecting a huge amount from them as PerkZ.
Continuing to be aggressive. Petrifying Gaze not going to connect. Looks like he was stopped up a little bit there by the minion. Febiven now feeling confident. Looking to trade just a little bit more, but Sejuani is here. Gragas here as well, though he's going to move up to the top side.
Here comes the snowball to chill down the snake lady. And Trick looking for another flank up top side.
Moving in, Odoamne has to be careful. Dominus is up and available. A lot of hard CC between the Renekton and the Gragas, but Trick is going to move right back to mid lane. Pop the Blast Cone while he's at it. No surprise, Rift Herald take's going to come in from H2K.
But look at Mithy, he's in some trouble.
Looking for a little bit more stacks. 3 stacks. Shen gonna come in. Stun has now landed on the Mithy. He's in trouble. Looks like he's just gonna be sacrificed. Team doesn't want to commit anything for him. Thick skin. Gonna buy a little bit of time. He's playing with his food. Is he gonna make it out? No, too much. Oh! The heal comes in as well. Oh, trapped in the dragon pit. See ya, nerds, says Mithy.
That's like when you get the lick of tongue and the Pokeball that shakes 3 times. You think you've got it, but then it pops out right at the last minute. H2K, they don't get the kill. They will get the dragon. And G2, I think they're just going to let this one go.
They're going to pressure in on the top side. We'll see if Expect can get tower first blood for this. Trick's actually moving in. If they do not get dragon here, this will be the most tilting thing that has ever happened. Now the taunt's coming in. Not going to get it in the end. Nice secure coming in the end. Gonna be the kill back for H2K.
A little shaky there from Trick. I feel like that was overzealous. Commits a little too hard. Good secure from Jankos. But now PerkZ, he doesn't have the mana to go for this trade.
Getting aggressive. Procking a bit of extra movement speed off that keystone. And now the Renekton is proxy farming. So if you were wondering how far ahead he is, yes, just as far ahead as when you feed him in solo queue.
It does help when he leaves the lane. Oda was helping his team secure a dragon, but now that advantage has snowballed even further. So you can see here, look, you're trying to catch this Ligatong, right? You get him really low and you throw out the Pokeball at first.
Hit him with the false swipe, you get him down to 1 health.
You hit him with the paralyzed too, you think you've got him. But then all of a sudden, he just pops out. Dragon actually helping out with a good barrel there from Trick too. Body block in front of Chei CC. And I think at this point you just concede it, but TP in the bottom lane, fed Renekton, here he comes.
Renekton on the way, dominance available. What can they do? The chain CC, it's gonna be perfect. Nuclear, there's no chance to escape. He's just too strong. 1 kill, 2 going over. 1 for the Renekton, 1 for the Caitlyn, and G2 just keeping this ball rolling.
Fantastic TP there from Expect. That is a great way to set up his bottom lane for success, bringing the lead that he accrued in the mid lane to the rest of the map. And now Febiven, he does have flash.
Sauce goes in. Explosive cask available, throwing it back. Febiven now knocked into the team. Petrifying gaze. Ooh, great combo, but the cleanse flash from Febiven coming out was clutch.
Febiven also had his back turned to PerkZ, so he couldn't quite land the root down. Did allow him to flash out from that, didn't go down. But just see here, you can see that with Mithy being fairly low, no flash as well. Nuclear Chei feel pretty confident, but no Shen ulti, no Shen TP. Really good flash body slam there from Trick. And H2K, they just overstepped ever so slightly. They didn't respect the setup that they were in. Really good utilization of the TP advantage, and now they're going to swap sides. They know how strong the Caitlyn is. They realize that they're behind. Their tower's going to go down eventually. So just try and make the swap happen so that you can get yourself some tower gold and open up the map a little bit more.
Definitely a smart move coming in. Renekton now swapped to the bottom, but it looks like G2 will be a little bit behind on the play. Actually, Renekton going to continue to topside. Looks like they're confident enough and expect with a lead that he can handle the 2v1 scenario. But what is this going to mean for Zven and Mithy? Can G2 balance out the pressure here on the bottom side? Can they get a tower for themselves?
You would expect Zven and Mithy still to be able to get to that tower first. What we're expecting is after Trick goes back to make his way down to the bottom side. Notice how PerkZ keeps pushing in mids, and we just want to see this vision cleared out for the side of G2. H2K, though, they're going to be doing exactly the same on the other side of the map, and PerkZ instead is being forced to go top to try and answer.
Yeah, PerkZ utilizing the pressure that he has in the mid lane to spend a little bit more time on the top side. Expect is running in. Don't expect a kill here. He is just trying to clear the wave. Has to be careful. Tower first blood on the table is going to go over to G2. Nice advantage for the team to keep it going.
Very much what you'd expect. This is why H2K decided to make the swap. They will eventually be able to take that tower down, especially with Expect's ultimate unavailable. But that is a Black Cleaver Renekton at 11 minutes into the game. That is scary. Something you always have to respect. And that's why they feel confident sending Expect to the top side, holding his own in the 2 versus 1. But with Trick and PerkZ hanging around, maybe not quite the 2 versus 1.
Chei and Nuclear smarter than to look for that opportunity, but PerkZ actually could be in trouble here. Moving in, that's the chain CC. PerkZ gonna cleanse, flash out, nice combo. Ooh.
That was smooth. Really nice plays there from PerkZ. But H2K, they get what they wanted, right? They get both cleanse and flash out from PerkZ. That ulti cooldown is going to be up way sooner than his summoner spells will be. So now from H2K, we want to see a return gank. We want to see that investment sent back to the middle lane. Try and get Febiven a few more resources, because he does have 1 kill so far, 2 points in the Hex core. And they're in a good position to try and shut down PerkZ.
Happy to have double upgraded abilities. 80 carries back to being matched up toe-to-toe as Renekton's going to continue just to threaten this Shen every waking moment. Yeah, you got your ninja tabbies. Yeah, you got your cloth armor, but you're looking down at a Black Cleaver double longsword level 9 Renekton. So incredibly difficult to deal with.
And I want to give more praise to Expect as well, because
earlier, he used his ulti, and it looked kind of random what he was doing, right? Because he just went into a massive minion wave, tried to go super aggro onto the bottom lane of H2K, and you think, what are you doing, Expect? You're just going to lose your life. But what he achieved was slowing down the siege from H2K, preventing them from being able to get the tower, which allowed G2 to get the bot tower and swap back to topside while still keeping that tier 1 alive. And now H2K's bottom lane are in exactly the same position that they wanted to try and avoid. They have not opened the map, they are down in towers, and that tier 1 in the top is gradually just going to get sieged upon, and it's going to give the freedom for Mithy to roam around the map.
We've already talked about it, but just once again, how different Game 2 and Game 3 have looked. You can see Game 2, H2K crushed G2. No doubt that they were winning the game from that moment the first Cho'Gath gank connected. This time around, G2 100% in the driver's seat, and if they can continue to execute as well as H2K did in Game 2, there's not going to be very many options to fire back. But PerkZ, unfortunately, Jankos does not consent to the staring contest.
No, he does not.
Will simply walk away.
Unfortunately that for G2, but H2K, they don't lose much off the back of that, aside from their tier 1 tower in the top side. G2 doing a great job of constantly investing deep vision. And you just see a different H2K when Jankos isn't on the roll. But again, really have to emphasize, scaling still very, very good for H2K. Right now, the early game isn't going in their favor. They didn't have the winning lanes, but that doesn't mean they cannot turn this game around. It's all about these later team fights that happen around the mid-game onwards. Viktor's going to be ramping up. Nuclear's going to be ramping up on the Kog'Maw. Definitely things not over yet.
Jankos is going to go for the steal here. 900 health and dropping lower. Doesn't look like it, just threatening. Mithy's going to grab that. Faster recall for the Tahm Kench. We'll see where he wants to go. He has the Swifties as well, so presumably faster to get into position to utilize it. But where are G2 going to focus that Rift Herald? Mid lane, the last tier 1 left standing.
Mithy did not buy a control ward. I can hear Deficio rolling right now. He's just like, why?
He should be happy. This not buying control ward probably, you know, saved his hair.
I don't know. No. Regardless of his hair, you know Deficio puts way more value on warding than he does anything of his own.
I don't know, man. I'm starting to doubt.
But speaking of wards, let's have a look at some of the vision that has been set up. Because you can see from H2K, very defensive line across all of the entrances to their jungle. They're very afraid of what G2 could be trying to do, especially around this blue buff. Now that mid lane is back from H2K, they have to be very defensive. Whereas G2, they want to try and extend their vision line. They want to try and move it so they can start sieging onto this mid-tier 1. Surprised that they haven't moved Caitlyn up onto the middle lane yet. I think they're still wary of the ability for H2K to force that all in fire.
And additionally, Viktor's just so effective at clearing waves. One of those old school control mages that can just keep a game going forever with the power of his wave clear outside of that Baron buff. So G2 instead deciding to divert their resources across the map. Renekton maybe going to push on the top side for now, spending a little bit of time in that Baron pit. Movement
this is great from G2. They pushed up bot. Shen is answering top. Jankos just delaying as long as he can.
Doing what he can. Gravity Field going to clear the minion wave. Rift Herald has been summoned. No minion wave to back her up, though, but it is still going to be a fat chunk off of that tower. Moving in, multiple members have been grounded. Doesn't look like we're going to see the fight. Just the tower taking the end. PerkZ, though, something different on his mind. At the end of the day, G2 just forcing a slow siege down the mid lane to get yet another advantage.
I don't know if I want to call them zoning ultis from PerkZ, or if I just want to say that he needs to reevaluate the range of
those were two
ultimate.
equally passive things. They're either zoning ults or they're bad, Vedius. Pick one.
But he hasn't had a huge success rate. The one that did land was a very crucial one because he got away with his life, and his summoner spells are back up. So Jankos not able to punish him for those lack of summoner spells available. Rod of Ages now completed for him as well, along with the core 3 of the Hex core for Febiven. So things looking certainly bright for the mid lanes.
Aether Wisp may herald a Lich Bane to come as well, so it looks like he wants to be able to continue to trade aggressively with PerkZ.
Not a fan of that, personally. I think that it's very, very risky. Usually the thing about Cassio is you don't want to put yourself in melee range. Like, you put the 2 points in the queue during the laning phase to help you trade, but late game, like, that Cassio will just straight up out DPS you. You really want a bit of magic resistance behind that. I think a Banshee's Veil second would have been fine. Instead, you know, he's going for the Lich Bane. We'll give him a little bit more sustained DPS during these team fights, a little bit more Q spam as well. But we'll see how things work out later on as the game progresses. Right now, H2K continuing to look to try and gain vision control around this Baron area.
And despite the gold deficit they find themselves in, almost 5K in the favor of G2, H2K still moving forward, still placing Vision quite proactively, so not willing to count themselves out of this game yet. Blade of the Rune King comes in for the Kog'Maw, sadly quite behind on the curve there. Caitlyn already approaching a finished second item, whereas Kog'Maw hasn't even started. Definitely not where H2K wanted to be, but they do have the scaling power of 2 threats. A Shen to protect them as well. Maybe they can find opportunity as we move later into the game.
Keep your eye on the Renekton though, level 12, sitting in the bottom lane. Odoamne still on the top side. Trick can just interrupt his back. Wait, just... Okay, I don't know why you wouldn't interrupt his back there. Super greedy recall from Odoamne, but he gets away with it, and G2 continue to hold on to their task. Still 3-0 in favor of G2.
What we do is we call those high-risk, low-reward, next-level plays. Because, he assumed... Never mind, we're going to hold that thought, because there's some potential aggression. He assumed that there wouldn't be expect moving into the mid lane and forcing a cleanse out, but expect going to lose a lot of life in this exchange. Mithy not too happy with that change of plans, so we are going to back off, and now the Shen is coming in. Instant cleanse out from PerkZ. Doing his best Captain Jack impersonation, not going to find it. Does land the stun. They are now starting to fire back. H2K have to be careful. They have to get out of here, but Nuclear is alive, untouched, as is Febiven. Can they turn this one back? A lot of low health bars.
But Zven isn't there. They're fighting this 4 versus 5. Very risky from the side of G2, but he may be able to get a tower in exchange.
H2K desperate to find that opportunity, that fight in their favor. They see Zven on the sideline. They try to pull the trigger. They're not going to find any kills, however. And now H2K's bottom lane is going to be able to stop the push from going any further. Febiven there to back them up as well. But H2K...
As you were saying, H2K, what are they trying to do, Drakos?
I have no idea. Because they're in dire straits at this point, because Febiven, he can one-shot the wave, but he is the only man on this team who can defend a tower right now. G2 just continue to put pressure everywhere. H2K looking like they're starting to succumb to the pressure. You can see on the player cams looks of frustration across the players' faces.
Yeah, things are just really difficult for H2K because there's so many disengage tools on the side of G2 that every time H2K try to force a fight, you get a Cassio ulti in the face, you get a Gragas ulti in the face, and if you even make it through all that, Tahm Kench is just like, and I'm gonna take your lunch away from you and walk it that way to the safety of my turret, while we have someone on the side lane knocking on your tier 2 tower.
There's also a Renekton almost finished a Blade of the Rune King, so if you were wondering if he was fed, that's a...
Definitely going for the side lane split push build. He will kill Shen.
And Sejuani. And Braum.
Not a 5v5.
And Nuclear. Probably not Febiven. But 4 out of the 5 there are definitely going to die to the Blade of the Rune King Black Cleaver, Renekton. Without support from the team at least. So things definitely still looking grim for H2K. And once again, we wanted to see more consistency from this team. We've talked about it. H2K on a slump up and down across the weeks. We saw from Goldgrass earlier. And this has to be frustrating for the team because we can speculate all we want, but the emotional aspect has to weigh heavily on this team. The emotional roller coaster of winning one week and feeling like you're a top team and then collapsing in a best-of-3 series.
And I want to emphasize, too, that this isn't exactly H2K playing badly, right? But I feel like the early game respect wasn't entirely shown for G2. We have to remember Odo giving away first blood because he tried to taunt onto a Renekton and he had no early vision to make sure that that play was safe. In the bottom lane, Nuclear and Chei, they pushed up knowing that the enemy had a TP and you didn't because you just tried to make a TP play, and you end up getting punished for it. And it's just these small mistakes coming out from H2K that have resulted in G2 getting ahead in their already winning lanes. And now they're very well executing the lead that they have to slowly close things out, very drawn out. But you always have to remember the scaling on H2K. I'm like a broken record because you always have to remember the win conditions for H2K are Nuclear get 3 items and he does not die in a fight. As long as he can get to 3 items, there's still the potential for H2K to turn this game around.
And for those of you not born in the era with records, pretty much this era, he means he's repeating himself a lot, but it's fair. Definitely a valid point. Odoamne overstepping is going to cost yet again. Quick kill, not a lot to say about it. Odoamne drops, and now that tower is in jeopardy. But Viktor is there to defend it. Don't know if they have the cojones to dive Febiven at this point in the game. Braum is there to back him up.
Just a really small thing, but it makes me laugh thinking about, ooh, ulti in mid.
Moving up. Body block coming in from Trick. Ulti going to come out from the Cassio, but Jankos definitely still in trouble. The Caitlyn more than happy to clean that one up. Trick gonna nab it in the end, and H2K, a death here, a death there against a winning G2 is definitely not what you could afford to do. Tower tower still held on. The Viktor wave clear holding H2K into this game. But each of those towers is steadily being chipped down.
H2K just slowly falling apart at the seams. Pick after pick going in favor of G2. They didn't even have that deep vision. They were just trying to push at mid. Jankos with no flash was hanging around. And Trick was just constantly standing in front of him, body blocking that Q ability so that there was no way for Jankos to escape. He's not that tanky at this point in the game. He doesn't have the same early game, flash and mid.
Backing off. Mithy gonna save the day for now. Decent damage coming out of Febiven and Nuclear, but cannot push any further.
And look at all this disengage from G2. We discussed it earlier on about how every time H2K try to make something happen, it's just G2 being like, nope, we're out. We're gonna back off, back off, back off. And now we're seeing this Fnatic playstyle where Sven's just sitting off in a side lane because H2K are trying to group up. And, oh, that was greedy, Jankos. Come on, you have no vision. You even spam the laugh. Ah, that was disrespect.
Okay, yeah. I was fine up until the last spam, but yo, you just control forward yourself to death.
Yep.
So maybe rethink that next time. I'm glad he's in a positive mood. I'm glad he's joking, but
Is that the face of a man who's joking, Drakos?
oh god, no, it was so sad. Oh, poor
I mean, it's rough, definitely rough.
Yeah, I mean, you're
considering how
0-1
dominant they were in game 2.
Yeah, you're a 0-1-1 tank against a 4-0-1 Renekton, a 1-0-2 Caitlyn. This is rough. This is a difficult game for H2K. They're lucky. They have some backup here. They have some decent wave clear. The Viktor can stop G2 from pushing any further, from taking inhibitors, but you're now in this, I think we could say 10 to 15 minute period where you just have to wait. And you have to hope G2 don't find a larger advantage and hope that you can get enough items that you can go toe-to-toe with the opposition.
And this is where our job becomes really hard, right? Because as entertainers, we need to make sure that the audience doesn't get bored of just the back and forth, just constant farming. So I prepared a bunch of dance moves, but they can't see them. I have no idea why I prepared them. It was a complete waste of time.
That's a bold claim. They could definitely pip us in here and for the audience.
So all those dance moves you were talking about, Jankos.
But on top side, PerkZ still trying to keep it aggressive. Chei not able to block the petrifying gaze, unfortunately goes through the unbreakable. May have been too late on the cast as well. But Baron, the big objective to break this game open. G2 not going to take any risks though. They know better. Cannot afford to fight in a pit against a Viktor and a Kog'Maw.
So PerkZ sitting off on the side lane, doing what he can to try and siege down that tower. Will not be able to get it, used his ulti once again. I like how flamboyant he is with the ulti, not afraid to just throw it out there, even if it doesn't miss. It produces an area of zone control, as we like to call them. But in the meantime, Baron vision being set up very heavily from both sides. H2K doing what they can to maintain control over their half of the jungle, but really, the full control is going in G2's favor.
Definitely the case. Gold leads 6K up, 6-1 in kills, 3-0 in towers. H2K very close to getting perfect gamed if G2 are able to keep it up. Luckily, they have the single kill on Febiven in the mid lane to stop that from happening. Jankos playing with fire here. Is going to get aggressive. Shen engage coming. Sven doing what he can to disengage. Trap goes in. Gravity field. Now Odoamne's knocked back to the team. Flash back out. Expect is in the backline. That is a Fed Renekton, but the chain CC comes in. Mithy says no. Out comes the Chaos Storm. No one is dropped yet. Tricky is in trouble. H2K can turn it. PerkZ on the front line. Now Febiven is in trouble. He looks like he might get taken down. PerkZ is running through the team. Sven is untouched, and G2 are unstoppable.
And PerkZ just melts through the lineup of H2K. Everything was looking so promising, but it all falls apart.
Bye-bye, Nuclear. Ace in a hole does not get a chance to connect because it is the twin fang from PerkZ that will be the death sentence for that little void puppy. G2 crush the fight.
It was all going so well. Trick was falling in the front lines. Expect wasn't able to get onto the Kog'Maw. The Caitlyn just wasn't dealing enough damage, but then PerkZ comes in, the knight in shining armor, getting a beautiful ulti. His damage just eviscerates H2K, and they have no answers.
G2, 10K gold lead. We saw H2K in the same position last time. H2K closed it with confidence. Can G2 do the same thing? Is this the end of their slump?
You can just see H2K, they try to force the fight here, which was fine. The setup is good. Expect, he gets chunked out right from the get-go. So much CC and peel has already been used. Sven isn't able to damage anyone, then here comes PerkZ. The beautiful flash, ulti, hits onto 3 members, and just watch as H2K melt. Sven can now do the damage. PerkZ is free to hit on them as well. The front line for G2 doing what it's supposed to do. And Nuclear, he's just left to die.
PerkZ, little BM here, but gets it in the end. And guys, you feel for that Viktor. Realizes he's stunned, maybe a tenth of a second later cleanses. But already there is a big fed crocodile in your face, and there's just no getting out after that. You cannot afford to make those mistakes. And you see how much damage the H2K carries can do. This comp can win late game fights, but unfortunately, just not enough in these exchanges. And with a Baron buff now backing of G2, the threat of Zven, the threat of Expect in these side lanes may just be overwhelming for H2K.
And you look at the composition from H2K and you think that, you know, maybe this wasn't the best choice, but as a comp, it's fine. It does nothing wrong. They should be able to hold their own in the majority of these lanes, but they just executed poorly in the early game. They gave G2's winning lanes the advantages they needed to snowball, and they have been unrelenting in their pressure as they continue to do so in the bottom lane.
G2 fighting Fnatic for the top of Group A. This win could very well help them take that place back for themselves. Misfits in that battle as well. G2 want to be undisputed #1 in their group. We're moving on to try to be #1 in Europe once again. H2K, a team that has fallen flat in the past and may just fall flat here against G2. This is a rough match for them. And realistically, very few options left. H2K hoping maybe they find the right engage, the right opportunity to come back.
And you'd hope that if you're an H2K fan, there's still the Kog'Maw potential, but it's not like Caitlyn's bad at scaling herself. She's gotten the 3.5 items, QSS completed 2. It becomes even harder to shut her down. And that Kog'Maw, yeah, sure, he has the late game threat, but you just can't afford to underestimate that of G2's either.
Definitely the case. Expect pushing into the mid lane. Febiven going to do what he can to clear the minions, but the team is split up, and that means Sven is going to get some free hits down onto this tower. Making it pretty easy for the squad. H2K, if they want to force an engage, they need to do it while this tower is up. See if that is the option for them. Single autos coming in from Zven. Not risking anything more in each of these exchanges.
And you can see, I believe that is a slow push. It's being set up in the top lane as well. So G2, this is the 1-4 setup that you want. Utilizing the Baron to its best. Have Expect just keep pushing in the middle lane. Use these Baron empowered minions and slowly walk them into the base of H2K. H2K, they're running out of options. They either have to force a fight or concede their base.
Backing off, Trick knocking Chei back into the team, but he's going to leap to safety. Stand behind me, he says, trying to make a way out. G-Town now pushing in on the inhibitor. Where is the engage going to come from? What are the options left? H2K conceding this one. The team is split up. They cannot find the fight. Zven is free hitting onto this Nexus. Desperation as they try to find an opportunity to go in onto PerkZ, but it's not going to happen. H2K are falling apart. G2 just continue to pressure forward.
The front line of H2K is down. The engagement is lost. H2K, they're struggling as G2 go for the final fight.
The exhaust. Chei tries to find the disengage. It's expected in the back line. Febiven, the Shen will try to save him, but it's too little, too late. Expect now dominating. He has yet to die in this game, and no one is going to kill him today as Mithy pulls him out. G2 taking down 2 members may just look to end the game right here.
They've lost the Baron, but they have the minion waves they need to end the game. Only Shen alive, only Nuclear there left to keep the scraps going. G2, their eyes are on the inhib. Will they bother trying to end?
Second inhibitor falls. Super minions are not going to be there yet for the team. The first wave may come on the bottom side. They may not need it. Zven continuing to auto. Keep your eyes on Nuclear. Febiven spawning in 20 seconds. Options running out for H2K. They're already behind, but now Trick is looking to start the fight. Knocking back, Expect in the middle of everything. Zven laying down some traps, setting up the fight for himself. He is untouchable. PerkZ now on a killing spree. Options out for H2K. G2 dominating the opposition here in Game 3, and there is just nothing left. Jankos, desperation. Febiven trying to get something, but there are no options. There is no escape. G2 honestly could just end right now, but they are having a little bit of fun with this one. Finally, it looks like it may come out. Are they going to let PerkZ die? Doesn't look like it's the case. Ladies and gentlemen, G2 take down H2K.
Very clean Game 3 from G2 eSports. They looked convincing throughout it. They utilized their winning lanes. Expect looked angry. I mean, his face did, but his playstyle certainly did.
He was aggressive. PerkZ picked him up.
Look,
we gave you a game on Renekton. Look what you did. Look what you can become. And G2, we wanted to know who was going to come out of their slump. Looks like G2 is the answer. Looking back on form here in EU, taking down another top team, no longer scraping wins against bottom teams where they can find them. They may have lost a game in the regular season, but they have not lost a series since Rift Rivals, and that is something that they can be proud of.
Yeah. You have to give props to H2K as well. I feel like that there were a lot of strengths coming out from them. Their game one, they played a lot of the game extremely well, even after all the pressure that Febiven was under. He was still able to become that late game casting threat. They were playing the 1-3-1 beautifully, but then they just fell into the trap of going for that final team fight, and they ended up losing game 2. They just looked super convincing. And I feel like game 3, they were just minor execution errors. Just either a lack
Single
of respect
oversteps.
or oversights.
Against a Renekton, which is, there's a lot of champions you can't afford to make mistakes against. Renekton is definitely one of them.
And it's got to feel rough for H2K, because to lose like that just feels really demoralizing.
Yeah, because when we look at it, Odoamne was not making the wrong choice to win his lane.
Right.
He was making a choice that would have helped him, that could have helped him win the lane against a very difficult matchup, but it ends up costing him his life because Trick is there to punish him.
Yep, and it just happened time and time again down the bottom lane. And then like there were just few answers for you to come back in, because your comp is so reliant on scaling that you have to wait to get to that scaling point. But you're always that half an item behind, that every time you try to make a fight happen, you're always going to be at the deficit. And G2 did such a great job of keeping that gap and just slowly extending it and bleeding H2K out of that game.
We did not see the same calm, collected play from H2K that we saw in game 1. Well, G2 took a crucial win to close out the series. For more on that, let's head over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Drakos. Obviously, we're also going to get a word with the winners, G2, in just a bit. But I do kind of want to focus in on what we saw from G2. We did right after, hugging each other, just showing a lot of emotion, because I can only imagine that this must mean a lot to them. And you, as part of a team that has also recently booked a big victory, how important will this win be for G2?
Well, they just turn around from Rift Rivals, and also they just start to winning, being a G2, so I think it's really good for them.
What makes you say G2? Is this kind of the style that they play to, or?
Yeah, just before G2 feels like just undefeated, and then it looks like just really strong, so he's getting like that right now. So
Yeah, it seems to be getting better overall.
Yeah, big win overall. Like, as we said, H2K is meant to be a top team here in Europe. G2 take them down, now move on. You know, G2 haven't had the best results across multiple games in the last couple of weeks. This is actually a really nice morale boost for G2 as a whole. But specifically for the league team, we have asked so many questions of this team over the last 6 months. We have said a lot of their mistakes, what we thought was wrong, and finally we're starting to see growth on fixing some of these areas. And I think that is why this is such a significant win.
Absolutely so. And when we look at their opponents, the instinct, and of course it is a heartbreaking loss for H2K, and it is a tough one, but I feel like I walk away with quite a good feeling about H2K as well. It just seems that G2 is stronger at this point and is getting back to form. Do you feel disappointed more by H2K, or do you feel like they did the best they could do, but today G2 was not beatable?
I think the worrying thing about H2K is that they're not really fixing their issues. They kind of have the same strength and the same weaknesses that we've been seeing before. They come prepared with great drafts, with great team comps, and then they're not really able to pull it off when the early game, when the early mid game gets too aggressive, which is what we saw in this last game of the series as well. So I think that's a worrying trend for H2K.
And it's a trend that isn't even a new one. I think they have fixed some of their issues around the early game that we saw in maybe in game 1 going into game 2, which crop up from now and again. The one thing H2K keep doing is picking what Prolly has called before these difficult drafts. Intentionally picking them, a Shen that ends up losing lane, a scaling mid laner, and a scaling AD carry, and saying, okay, we're good enough to play this out, but then you lose the early game and you lose the game from it. This is an H2K mistake we have seen a couple of times every single split that H2K have been in the LCS.
But do you agree on the fact that you think the draft was lacking in the third game?
yeah, it looks like good, but you can't team fight with that comp, you know, that's the problem. So G2 just did really good all the game, and then same time, it's really hard to do a good really game with that comp, so.
And G2 also expect was having a good series once again. When he is on a pick that isn't Jarvan or something that he can take plays with, he does great. Expect is our player of the series, and that is always usually an indicator of the team gelling really well. Obviously, PerkZ last week was also an indicator of that, but if we think back to MSI, when Expect was feeling good and making the plays, G2 was feeling good, so that's a good indicator.
Yeah, great indicator. Expect, especially the Renekton game, I think it highlighted what SOAS at Rift Rivals felt is when you're on Shen on the other side, you can't get back into the game. Expect is just taking over the entire game on Renekton, running around the map, killing people anytime he finds his way onto them. And it's good to see Expect because, again, another member of G2 that's had a lot of criticism. I think this was a good series for him overall.
Yep. So is this then the return of G2?
I said before the series that I think that return has already started, and that this is just such a big momentum boost in that direction. I mean, they had the win versus Splice, and now this important win as well. I think G2 are definitely on a strong roll.
On the right path, G2 coming up with a dominating performance to secure the win. Let's see what their AD carry has to say after that series.
Thank you very much, Shox and the guys. I am joined by Zven, or Lord Zven, as I should probably call you. Obviously, as an Englishman, I have to respect the lordly ways that you have. I want to talk a little bit about this series, but before I do, I want to talk about how you guys are coming off Rift Rivals, because it was a disappointing performance for G2 and for Europe in general, but you guys seem to have bounced back very well.
I mean, yeah, Rift Rivals sucked. I agree. We lost 5 games out of 6, and the one game we won was not even like that good. We kind of threw away a huge gold lead. One guy was trolling, and all our games we kind of just lost randomly out of nowhere. We didn't like just lose. We just threw the game somewhere randomly. We were ahead, we were behind, we got stomped. So Rift Rivals was like not a wake-up call, because that was the first matches against Fnatic, Unicorns, and so on. Like Rift Rivals was that second alarm you put after the first one to make sure you wake up. So now we're here, and I think we had a team talk about it, and everyone is more happy now, and we scrim better. We have better scrim ethic, or whatever you call it. Like we scrim better and more productive, I think. So yeah, Rift Rivals changed something for sure.
A bit of an attitude shift, perhaps, in the G2 house?
It's not that we have bad behavior or like we're insulting each other or something like that. We're all good friends anyways, but we just like didn't have the best scrims of productivity, or like we didn't learn as much as we could learn from our scrims. And I think now we are doing much better in scrims, not only like winning or losing wise, but we're also like making the scrims better for ourselves to learn more, and we talk more about drafts, and we have better preparation for our games. So I think we're on a good track.
Okay, we don't often talk about sort of scrim ethic and the background behind it. I'm going to push you a little bit further. What is it specifically that's made your scrims better? What means that you can learn more from them? I
mean, EU already had bad scrim ethics, or whatever you call it, where if you fall behind, you just FF. If at 20 minutes you're behind, just pause and go next game. We don't talk very well about the games in the post-game review. Things like this, where EU has already bad scrim behavior, and we're just like, oh, we all died, let's pause and go next game. But now we're not pausing games until the Nexus explodes, and we're trying our hardest to come back. And when we're behind, try to make it hard for any team to win, like make them sweat for it, make them make a mistake. And when we're ahead, we try to play it slow and calculated, so we can't risk losing. So yeah.
You do seem to have a much slower style than other teams, especially on the new patch. Like H2K, when they beat you, overall there were 35 kills in the game, and then in both of your wins, there were 35 kills together. So what is it that makes you want to play slower on this patch?
I think that game is like what we want to avoid. When you're behind, you want to play slow, and you want to make them take 10, 15 minutes to get Baron. But that game, we didn't do it so well. That's what we were practicing. But when we're ahead, we want to just play slower and not risk fighting over the loss. Also, your question was what, sorry?
Yeah, why are you playing slower as a team?
Okay, yeah. So it was right.
You answered it.
Yeah, we're playing slower because when we're playing like our old style, whatever you want to call it, we tend to throw away games where we will get caught, or we'll fight when we shouldn't fight. And there's one way to play when you're ahead that makes you not lose no matter what. If you play it perfect, you can't lose no matter what, unless you get outplayed somehow, but you take the fight yourself. So we try to play perfect, kind of, our risk-free style that when you're ahead, you win. When you're behind, you make it hard for the opponent.
Well, some of your games did actually look pretty perfect, especially that game 1. I'm going to ask you to rate yourself at the moment. Where do you think G2 stands as a team versus the other top teams in Europe?
I mean, I think H2K is a very good team. They play well today, I think. I think they're kind of on our level. I think Fnatic is still a good team. I just see a bit more games from them. They have this new style. They play meta AD carries now, and they probably play a bit different Champions RLs too. There's also a huge patch now with Broxa might be playing tank junglers now, so that might change their style a little bit. So I think Fnatic, H2K, and us are still the top teams, and then Unicorns seem to be not doing too well recently. So I think we're in the top still.
So you're the S tier and they're sort of the A tier.
Also, Misfits is the good team too.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. I think that's it from us for now. I'm going to hand it back over to the analyst desk, but thank you very much for joining me, Lord Zven. Shox, take it away.
Thank you very much, Medic. Wonderful interview there and some great answers from Zven. A lot to jump on. I really like the insight into, I feel like we're prepping better, we're trying to draft better, which does hint at a bit of complacency before. And I can imagine maybe if they came from MSI and they did so well and they know they dominated EU before, do you understand that maybe there was a bit of, not taking it too serious from G2?
Well, I don't know, maybe they have some problems, but we don't know exactly. Maybe it's some kind of struggling in scrim. Also, we did really struggling in scrims. Maybe that's why actually we win today, because we actually fixing some problems in scrim also. So yeah.
Well, you did win today. Unicorns of Love were the victims, unfortunately for them, and it was quite a big upset. Not a lot of people had seen you guys winning that series, so overall, except for Wadid being a god, what went so good about this match?
Well, we just try to do not some fail, and then try to just focus and chill, not aggressive, and then focus, and then we win. Yeah.
We saw a couple of what Wadid likes to call the traps of 7-14 coming out here. We saw the Cho'Gath in the jungle, we saw the Kayn in the jungle. What are your thoughts on some of the new stuff we saw in the series reviewing the Unicorns?
Well, it's quite early to judge some picks are bad or really good, but I think still have some chance for good picks. Kayn also get buff next patch also, and then Cho'Gath, it looks good if you just change CC, and then yeah, every champion has chance to good, yeah.
This is different from Wadid when the cameras are off. Wadid's like, there's traps, the Cho'Gath's a trap.
Noob traps is what he called it.
The Kayn is a trap because he needs to snowball super hard. It's okay.
No, no, but obviously, I guess players often get seduced into taking the new picks or trying the new picks, even though they might be not so versed on it. But we did see very good Cho'Gaths today as well. I wanted to jump on what you said about taking it easy sometimes in the game more, because last week, for instance, you guys had good early games. You've had a lot of good early games over the split, over the second half of the split. But then in the mid game, it didn't really work out. You threw the lead. So was that specifically what you're trying to work on this week?
Yeah, that's why we just more focus on scrim also, and then try to make some play. Don't be like really defense, and then just don't be afraid. Just go for play when you have tempo. Just do right play at right time. That's our motto right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think that really showed in the series, because what I was expecting coming in is for Rocket to have these strong early games, but then Unicorns to just take over in the team fights. But I think Unicorns did not team fight as well as we used to see in Rocket. You were really good in the teamfight department compared to what I'm used to, so good job.
And I think one of the biggest things for me is a frustration is Unicorns making the same mistakes. It has been week after week after week of the same mid-focused mistakes.
But they kept winning,
but now they're losing. Yeah. And there is absolutely no disrespect, because your win was a great win. But when you look at a team that is at the top of a table, you expect them to keep winning and fix their issues at the same time. And that is something that Unicorns just aren't doing. They didn't fix the issues, and you did a great job of taking them apart through the middle lane.
Yeah, and the Unicorns of Love are, of course, a team that is always very based around the team cohesion and whatnot. I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn here, but maybe some other team would have made changes in the lineup for that. And I think that is also something that I respect about the Unicorns. They always stick with what they have and build the players, even if in the eyes of the community they are kind of subpar. But I do wonder, when does breaking point come? And I know this is a very difficult thing to talk about because we're not in the team, but obviously we know that Exile has been underperforming for a while, so something needs to be done.
I think there's always going to be times when a player in the fans or the viewer's mind is going to be underperforming. I think the Unicorns fundamentally treat themselves as more of a family than a team, and I think that is why they will stick by their own players, and I actually have a lot of respect for that. I think Unicorns can find a style that this will work for them, but they need to stop the hemorrhaging in mid lane. They cannot give up so much, and that is possible to fix with the players they have already.
Well, also an interview that Sheepy had a couple of weeks ago where he was asked about, obviously, the Exile, because he is the person that we're all looking at, and he said, well, it's all a team thing because someone didn't call miss. And I don't agree with that 100% because sometimes he makes individual mistakes, but as you say, in general, they just go for plays so often that you're like, oh, this is, you know, complete win or a complete loss when they go all in. That's what we respect about them. But I'd love to see how they turn it around. Do you see them turning it around? The Unicorns of Love. And we're being a bit overdramatic, but because they only lost one series in the last 4. But
I definitely think that Unicorns are still a top team in Europe. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Speaking about Exile more in particular, though, I'd like to see them adapt their style a bit more around that. I remember we had some criticism of Joko earlier on in the season, and then the adaptation that was made was to put him on a jungle like Ivern to be more of the supportive player, to not have to make this sort of a mechanical plays. I think doing something similar for Exile, just get him on these wave clearing mid laners, hug your tower, just don't fall far behind and contribute in the team fights. That would be something that I want to go for, because what we've been seeing the failures in the Unicorns of mid lane is when he's pushed up really far.
But did you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's take a look at the standings because that's really cool for you guys. Roccat, they're closing in on Misfits Gaming 3 and 6 versus 4 and 3. So only one series win difference there. At least so it did. How likely are the playoffs for Roccat this split? You came so close last time.
Well, at this time, we're also a bit like, it looks like not a really good chance for that, but we just, you know that like late season Roccat is Kingslayer, you know.
7 series wins in a row,
Yeah.
man. Just do it.
And the first win of that potentially being against Unicorns. None of the other teams really have got that kind of a win recently. The other group, Group B, we're going to see a lot more play over the coming days. There's a real tight race in the bottom of Group B because Mysterious Monkeys are on the up, Vitality are on the up, Splice. They're looking okay, but there's possibility of wins being taken off them.
All very interesting teams you mentioned. Let's take a look at the matchups for tomorrow. The Mysterious Monkeys and Misfits are facing off in their first match of the day, and then Splice and the Ninjas in Pajamas. So there seems to be opportunities for all 4 teams. Misfits obviously just lost last week, and then the Mysterious Monkeys are on the up and up. So do we see an upset here in one of those 2 matches?
I think we might. This is Mysterious Monkeys, the former Misfits Academy, taking on their sister team, and it might be Monkey See, Monkey Do on 7-14, because I really think the split push style could undo Misfits if Misfits start slowing down in the game.
Well, we'll see. We had a lot of action today, a lot of action coming the next 3 days, but it's time for us to log off for the night. Thank you very much, Vedius, for joining us on the desk. A pleasure. And for you guys, thank you so much for watching. We will be back here tomorrow for more battles on the Rift. Have a great night.
So